looks a little hazy. Good morning. It is January the 17th, 2025, and I am at chapter 31 of A Vague Vacation. It's a journey through largely France by Joan Marshall Grant and her then husband Charles. She was famous for her farm memory books, and I've read them all because I love them. And this one is a travel book. In 1946 she travelled, and it was published in 1947. She passed away in 1989. Jacques Coeur, chapter 31. The bedroom was so cold and so small that mock coffee would have been even more than the usual mockery, so we decided to look for breakfast elsewhere. This proved unwise, for the cafe we chose was dank with stale cigarette smoke, and the jus de fruits, which we hoped would have to be orange juice, was a viscous fluid flavoured with black currants and remarkably nasty. The door opened hesitatingly, and for a moment I thought I was seeing a favourite ape. His face was buried in a thicket of whiskers, his arms reached nearly to his knees, his nails were curved black claws. He shuffled slowly round the room and suddenly made a dart to pick up something from a crack between the boards. The slatternly woman who owned the place pushed towards him across the bar a saucer in which 2 cigarette stubs had drowned in beer. He snatched them avidly. Then he looked around and suddenly pounced under my chair. Before he came in, I had dropped the cigarette and forgotten to pick it up. He looked at me with pathetic incredulity and handed it back to me. It never occurred to him that anyone would give away something so valuable as a whole cigarette, nor did he expect any thanks. We gave him 20, all we had with us, and he hurried away in case we might change our minds. Had the mist cleared, we might have enjoyed the views of the Loire Valley, which the map had led me to expect on the 60 miles north of Saint-Étienne. But we had to use sidelights except on the highest ground, which was bleak moorland with heather and stunted pines that seemed incongruous to so close to vineyards. The Michelin mentioned that there was a chateau near Rouen where one could eat in the great tradition, but it gave no adequate direction, so in the town I went to a stationer's and bought a local guidebook. I also found a copy of the Guide Gastronomique de la France, which I had tried unsuccessfully to get beforehand. I asked the woman who produced them for me whether she knew if we could lunch at the Château de Boissy. She assured me that we could certainly do so, and this view was shared by a schoolmaster and a curé who had joined in the conversation. Full of enthusiasm I returned to Charles, who for some reason wanted to lunch in Rouen, which I thought rather drab of him. The map in the guidebook appeared to have been drawn by a child without talent, and we found no adequate signposts. We bumped along winding lanes until the 7 kilometers seemed to stretch like pre-war elastic. I was beginning to get a little worried, for Charles objects to losing his way, and rather to my losing his way. Suddenly I saw that what was certainly our objective: massive, round towers among ancient trees, a chateau of the 15th century, evidently waiting only to welcome us. I turned in through the gates and then stopped so abruptly that the engine stopped also. A large notice informed us that the place was now an agricultural college. "So they told you we should lunch well here?" said Charles. "No doubt they thought you were a schoolmistress who was wondering whether she ought to bring sandwiches." It was unnecessary for him to rub it in, so I said something to the effect that if he had gone into the shop, they would have mistaken him for a plumber coming to inspect the drains. A feeble retort, but I could think of nothing. "Ready to get back to Rouen? They may have some crumbs left for us," he said coldly, then added, "No doubt the name of the place attracted you. Bossy, with an I in it." I reversed out of the gate and then drove further away from Rouen, while Charles read aloud from the gastronomique of specialities which we might have been enjoying had I taken his advice. I appealed to Patver. After all, I had followed a hunch, and he ought to be grateful. We came to a village, a Renaissance, and I paused at the crossroads to ask the only person in sight whether there was somewhere to lunch. She looked surprised and pointed across the street. Patver had not deserted us, for the outside of the Hotel du Midi was an admirable prelude to what we were to discover within. The bar was gay and friendly, a suitable setting for the patron and his wife. Whilst Charles was sampling the new wine, which had been pressed only a week ago, and was the colour of purple cabbage, I talked to Madame. "My blouse is a present from England," she said, "and my lingerie too. Your country supplied most of the women in the village with nylon and silk." Seeing my surprise, she laughed. You see, there were many... Oh, for goodness sake. There were many marquis in the hills between here and Vichy, and when the telephones dropped supplies, our men brought the parachutes home. In the dining room we discovered that the chateau had been a relevant clue, for the walls were decorated with morals of a legend based on the life of Jacques Coeur, who had built it. Charles, who has made some study of myths and symbolism, was delighted to find that this one differed from the usual dragon slayer tradition. Jacques Coeur kills the monster, takes the diamond from its forehead, gains the power of the dragon, is betrayed by jealous monks and put to death. But the last picture shows him reinstated, returning to get his rewards 7 years later. I gave due attention to veal, cooked with mushrooms and cream, while Charles talked more to himself than to me, between forkfuls. Jewel in the head, that's the hero's spiritual attainment after conquest of Black Snake. Kundalini, libido, Kyan, hero entitled to wear golden cobra, hence Pharaoh's Uraeus. Same as Madonna with her crown of jewels and her foot on the head of the snake. Some truth in every myth if you know the key. Control energies, use them, don't let them use you. Don't abuse power or it will turn in its track and destroy you. His soliloquy was cut short by the patron's return, who came to show us a rare 10-franc note on which Jacques Coeur was commemorated. In 1940, Churchill was Jacques Coeur to the world, he said. We raised our glasses in his toast. Au cœur vilain, rien d'impossible. The hearts of the valiant, for them, nothing is impossible. Is that what it means? Au cœur valiant, rien d'impossible. We were to use that toast often during the next few weeks, and always found response. The hearts of French people are still valiant, but France must learn again to believe in the impossible before she can make it come true. So this was chapter 31. Chapter 32 is Green Grow the Ruins. And I wish you a good Friday.